I'm with Danny Carmon, the former Israeli ambassador to India. Ambassador Carmon, thank you for speaking with WION. Now, you're involved with the Forum for Hostage Families. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, sure. I think it's an example of an initiative by the civil society in Israel, an unprecedented initiative in which 2 days after this terrible, horrible October 7th, engaged in the thousands, a pouring in of thousands of people from all walks of life in Israel in order to come fill in the vacuum that the war opened. And it's a remarkable initiative of the civil society, of professionals in all fields, including in diplomacy.
Yeah, you mentioned that there's a group of 20 former ambassadors involved. In what way are the ambassadors involved in this campaign?
Well, since the task of bringing the hostages back as part of a much larger, complex war and war against terrorism, huge challenges that this country faces, we thought that to bring an angle of diplomacy would be helpful to the big task, because this crisis engulfs more than one country, more than one region. I think that the world totally is involved in this, and there's much of context, experience, know-how and knowledge that those 20 ambassadors that have a privilege to take part in this group can bring to the table, with one thing in mind: not the negotiations, not the politics, not the war, and even not fighting terrorism, which are huge tasks, but caring for the families, giving them advice, opening up doors, opening channels, helping them to draft communiques or anything. I think we are not only doing our best, but helping the families. And we have only the families in our minds. We're ex-ambassadors. We used to be civil servants. Now we're volunteers in a civil society initiative, and we have one thing in mind: the families of the hostages. Until they're all come back, we will not cease to do our job.
Hamas has said that it's accepted Israel's offer for a ceasefire. What's your response to that?
We've seen so much information and misinformation and disinformation. I think it's very prudent to wait and to see the results of the very harsh negotiating and mediating that so many players are putting into this huge, complex challenge of bringing an end to the war, eliminating Hamas terrorist capabilities, even maybe eliminating governance by a terrorist organizations. And I must say, when I talk with an Indian audience, India knows exactly what terrorism is and how to confront terrorism. But more directly to your question, until it's over, it won't be over until it's over. So we have to wait and see. And from this perspective, we are continuing our job and our work and our mission in helping the families go through this terrible roller coaster. I can tell you that last night until 1 a.m. we not only drafted the communiques and letter to ambassadors stationed in Israel, but also we tried to give the families the experience that we have, although this kind of crisis I don't think there was any precedence to such a crisis, which is humanitarian, humane, and really touches upon so many families of abducted Israelis and foreign nationals.
At this stage, what do you think is the best course of action that Israel can take?
Well, you interview me as an ex-ambassador to India, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I'm not a representative of the Israeli government anymore. I used to be a civil servant for 45 years. Now I'm not. And from my perspective now, I think that releasing the hostages is the most important task. Those are human beings. Those are people who have been 7 months today imprisoned, kidnapped, tortured. Who knows? We don't know where they are. We don't know what they eat. We don't know what their medical situation is. So this should be taken out of the equation. I just want to remind you, I know that UN resolutions are very important to the Indian audience. There are 2 resolutions that say unconditional and immediate release of all hostages. This should be done. I know it is put inside the equations. It should be taken outside. The world, the mediators, and the government of Israel have an obligation, especially the government of Israel, to do everything, and I mean everything, to release the hostages. Rafah can wait. Other things can wait. The hostages cannot wait. They're dying.
If you could be in the room with the mediators, if you could say one thing to Prime Minister Netanyahu, if you could speak directly to Hamas, what would you say?
To Hamas, I would say, you've done enough damage to Israel, to Israelis, to people from other nationalities. You have done such bad things to the Palestinian people itself. Take your things, get out of Gaza, leave the area and let the Palestinians govern themselves in a democratic way, in a non-violent way, without any thinking about terrorism. If I could, I'm not sure I could not only speak to them, I'm not sure I'd like to speak with them after their bestial, medieval, terrible deeds that they did throughout the years, and especially on this October 7th. Fast forward to the Prime Minister of Israel, to Benjamin Netanyahu, who I would say, take politics aside. Don't look at your constraints as a politician who has to maintain a coalition. We have a threat in Israel, which you, Prime Minister, know so well. Solve it. Look at a future of our region as there are opportunities that you know about. Listen to your friends from abroad, not only to your coalition partners, and more than anything else, do everything so that the hostages come back. You have an obligation to do that. You have a contract with our citizens to do that, so just do it.
Ambassador Carmon, thank you for your time and your insights speaking with WION.
Thank you very much.